Welcome back. You're tuned into Chartbusters here on CNBC-TV18. The next management then that we have is Glenmark Pharma. They've reported a steady set of numbers. The problem was that in the past quarter, they couldn't achieve the guidance that it set out for the year. However, what's the way ahead? Well, we're joined by Mr. V.S. Mani, the ED and Global CEO at Glenmark Pharma. Hi, Mr. Mani. Good morning. Thanks a lot for joining in. Well, you're guiding for around 10 to 12% growth on the top line. Sure. Could you tell us what's the breakup? How much are you factoring in terms of a growth with regard to the United States? Because plenty of uncertainty out there. And what about the Indian operations? What is the growth number you're factoring in? And also on margins, last year you fell short. This year you're sure you can achieve the margins you've guided?
Sure. So thanks for the question. Let me set some context. So in the current year also, we had a turnover of about 13,300 odd crores with a growth of about 12%. And obviously the margins were for this quarter looks a little lower. For the full year is about a little more, about 17.7%. So obviously the margins were a bit lower on the back of mainly the US business. We did not get any key big launches. So obviously those had a play in that. Now, going forward, obviously, the next year we have spoken about a business growth of about 10 to 12%. But giving it a business-wise breakup, we would probably keep it to a later date. We're planning to have an investor day. So at that point of time, we'll do that. And we have guided to about a 19% margin next year. And obviously, that will be more on the back of improved performance in the US, as well as some growth in royalties, as well as some efficiency. So all put together, we should see closer to 19% that we're guided.
All right, so 19% margin, you're comfortable with 10 to 12% growth in India is what you've said. Overall revenue...
I said the overall business growth is about 10 to 12%. I have not broken it up business-wise, India or the US.
Okay, not quantitatively, but if you could qualitatively tell us what would grow faster? I mean, do you think US would be the one driving this growth or would it be India? Because there are uncertainties everywhere, right?
I appreciate. So let's look at the current year for some, way forward. So the Europe continues to do well. And it did about 17-18%. So we see that doing pretty well. India would be pretty steady. Obviously in IQVIA, etc., have been growing at about 10% or so. And then again, if you look at the emerging markets, while we had some currency losses, etc., otherwise the growth has been in excess of about 10%. So I think in the US, obviously we are, looking at some approvals in terms of the respiratory ones that we are expecting in the quarter to end or and also the second half. These are all more in terms of the Flovent. So if these all come together, then obviously we see achieving the growth of 10 to 12%.
And you expect margins to improve in the US despite the uncertainties that we're seeing around tariff and pricing, right?
We are looking at these critical launches. So these happen, then obviously then your margins would definitely improve. Yeah. But besides that, also the rest of the businesses seem to be having a decent margin. So I think with all in all, with this royalties, some bit of improvement in the US as well as some efficiency all put together, we should be close to what we are projecting.
All right. Royalties, I think you're guiding for around $100 million, right, in this year?
Yes.
And what is the glide path? Because in the past, you'll have mentioned that in the next few years, you expected to move to around $200 million. Yeah. By when?
Yes. So just again there to give some color, royalties, which was 40 million last year, touched about 80 million in the current year, and we're expecting to touch 100. We already have commercialized it in 45 geographies, and obviously we're looking at 10 to 12 more geographies. It's doing well in all the markets where we are present with our own footprints, as well as in partnered markets like Menarini with Europe, as well as with South Korea, etc. We are doing quite well. So I think going forward, we expect in next 3 to 4 years to at least close on to the 200 million. Yeah.
All right. Next 3 to 4 years, $200 million out there. What is the update on both Monroe and Pithampur plants? You have indicated that there could be an inspection anytime soon. Is it possible for you to give us a timeline? Maybe by, say, the next couple of quarters, you expect some sort of resolution, if you could give us a sense?
It'll be difficult to give a timeline and resolution, but I can say that Monroe, obviously, we have done enough work and we expect the agency to come sometime. As well as the Pithampur goes, we are working with the agency to resolve the issues. And there are no major launches out of there. The critical launches in the current year and couple of years are from Aurangabad, which, as you know, got inspected a couple of months ago and it had a 0483s. So I think all in all, we'll wait for the agency to come for these two other plants.
So these aren't very material, even if they weren't...
They would not impact your business. They are not impacting the business in such a way commercially, but obviously we would like them to be inspected and...
Yeah, so your 10 to 12% growth guidance and 19% margins aren't, predicated on the outcome of US FDA, results for these two facilities. Let's put it that way.
That's right. They're not impacting the business so much, yeah.
Okay, all right. Mr. Mani, how about your balance sheet? How is that looking?
Balance sheet is looking quite okay. I mean, if you ask me, we ended the year with almost like a 1,000 crore addition to the reserves, and while our debt did go up by 1,200 crores, but that was mainly on the back of increased requirement for working capital, which was really down. Now we are pretty much very close to the peer where they have average days of 100 to 110 days. We'll be there close to that. So I think balance sheet looks quite okay.
What about ISB 2001? I mean, you did receive a fast track designation by the US FDA for multiple myeloma. Are there any out-licensing talks going on here?
Yeah, we are in touch with a number of potential, interested parties, and we are hoping that we could have something come up with a positive outcome quite shortly. Yeah.
What's the roadmap for this asset?
Roadmap is obviously you would work on that, and then you'd work with the partner, and then you'll take it forward, and it looks good right now.
What we wanted to understand, sir, was what the financial roadmap,
The financial roadmap, we may not be in a position right now to give you, but all we can say is once this is done, after that, IGI would not obviously have to look at Glenmark for any funding or anything like that. And going forward, at least 3 to 4 years, the funding would be taken care by this. Yeah.
All right. Since the balance sheet is in much better shape, any inorganic growth plans?
Not at the moment, but obviously we continue to keep doing in-licensing deals. As you have heard, in India also we did this Beijing deal, and then we also had Winlevi, etc. So we continue to in-licensing transactions, but not looking at M&A right away.
India was flat this time around, perhaps due to seasonality in respiratory, which did impact the portfolio, one would assume. What led to the weakness in the diabetes portfolio? I mean, how did key drugs such as liraglutide do?
So liraglutide continues to do quite okay. I mean, in a sense, we did have some supply issues there, but otherwise it's doing quite okay. The earlier products that we had of Remo and teneligliptin, those seem to have slightly degrown in this quarter, etc. So that's the reason why it is. But just to give you some color on the India business also, we had guided the street to about a 4,500 crore turnover in the current year, which we achieved. Obviously, the first half was much better than the second half, and as we already sort of guided that in this quarter we had some challenges with the acute respiratory as well as the diabetes portfolio, and I think let's see how things work out.
Final question, because everyone's been talking about this for the last couple of years, and this has been the buzzword, and it goes off patent as well. Semaglutide. Are you eyeing this as an opportunity?
Yeah,
what plans do you have here?
Yes, we are also looking semaglutide as an opportunity, and obviously, we have already, we're already working with liraglutide. We'll obviously add semaglutide as well, and it will help us to probably,
How are you participating? I mean, have you spoken to some?
We are working with a couple of people, and we'll announce at the right time. Yeah.
By when?
It'll be a couple of weeks or months. Yeah.
Couple of weeks or months. We'll keep an eye out on that. Thank you so much for joining in and giving us all those details. I think, the street did not like what you had reported, but the commentary is something that the street is now coming to terms with, as a result of which, after opening a lot lower, the stock has seen a bit of a recovery, currently sitting with a cut of about 1.5%. At some point, did move into the green as well. That's Glenmark Pharma. But